This week on Engage the Sage.
Hi everyone, I'm Don Saucier. Welcome to this week's episode of Engage the Sage. This week's episode, we're going to talk about letters of recommendation, and more specifically, how to ask for letters of recommendation. Many of you have probably done this before. Some of you have applied to graduate school or to professional school. Some of you have applied to academic jobs. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you 5 tips today for how to make this process more successful in requesting those letters of recommendation. Letters of recommendation are an important part of the application process. Whether we're talking graduate school or academic jobs, they are an important part. They're not the only important part, they are one of those though. Because what they do is they show someone else's perspective of you as a candidate for that degree program or that job. When you're asking for letters of recommendation, it matters who you ask, it matters how you ask, and it matters how you set up the people you ask. And you're going to see those themes show up in the 5 tips that I have for you today. My first tip in requesting letters of recommendation is to start this process early. When you're asking for letters of recommendation, it is critical that you plan ahead. The people that you're going to be asking to write your letters are very, very busy people, and you want to put them into a position that they will have time to write the letter and time to do a really good job. I recommend you give your letter writers at least 1 month of notice before the first application deadline when you're asking them to write you a letter of recommendation. Now, it's possible they might be willing to do it on a shorter timeline than that, but less than a month is not a good idea. If you're applying for applications that, say, start in December, in September, October, you're probably going to want to start to ask your letter writers. You probably want to give them enough time to work through the letters that they're writing for lots of people, to put you on their list and to support you well throughout your process. You also want to start early because one of the unfortunate realities of this, it is possible that maybe one of the people you asked to write you a letter of recommendation may be unable or unwilling to do so. So if you have some time built into your timeline, you're going to have the opportunity to go to other letter writers if your first couple can't do it. My second tip for requesting good letters of recommendation is to be strategic in who you ask to be your letter writers. When you're thinking about who is going to be a good letter writer for you, you want to think about people who know you well, who are going to be able to say really good things about you and your potential for success in graduate school or in that academic job. You want the letters that you have to be excellent. Hiring committees, selection committees, admissions committees, they read lots and lots and lots of these letters. So you want letters that are going to really make you stand out in a good way. If possible, choose letter writers who know you in more than one capacity. Maybe they can talk about your class performance. Maybe they can talk about your research abilities. Maybe they can talk about your collegiality. Maybe they can talk about one of those things that might hurt your application without some context. Maybe they can talk about lower test scores. Maybe they can talk about an extenuating circumstance that hurt your academics for a while. Maybe they can talk about that publication record that's still emerging. Now, it's possible or maybe even likely that you don't have one person who can talk to all of those things, and that's fine. But when you're selecting the field of letter writers for you, think about individuals who can address those things collectively. When you're selecting potential letter writers, it might be good to think about people who have done the thing you're applying to do. So if you're applying to graduate school, it might be great to have people who have been to graduate school and completed graduate school be the people that you ask to write your letters of recommendation. If you're applying to an academic job, maybe asking people who are performing in that academic job to write your letters might be a good idea. The third tip I have for requesting letters of recommendation is to make your request in a personal and respectful manner. Once you've decided who you want to ask for your letters of recommendation, you're going to want to ask each of your potential letter writers individually to write that letter. In an ideal world with no COVID and we're all in the same spots, maybe you can make that request face-to-face. But if not, sending that person a personalized email, and not the same email that you have all 3 or 4 of the people in that address line, maybe sending that person a personal email might be a really nice touch to let them know that you really would be honored if they were to write a letter of recommendation to support you. When you're asking for your letters of recommendation, it's important to let people know why you're asking them. Let them know what domains you would like them to speak to. Let them know what classes you were in with them. Let them know what projects you worked on together. Let them know why it is special that you asked them. As I mentioned, when you're thinking strategically about the people who you want to write your letters of rec, you're going to want to think about what they can say. I think when you're reaching out to them, let them know what you want them to say. Let them know the domains to which you'd like them to speak. Let them know the kinds of things that you would like them to share about you. So remind them of the class performances. Remind them of the classes you took with them. Remind them of the research projects. Remind them of the semesters that you worked together. Remind them of the experiences that you've had together and helping them decide whether or not they can support you. A good letter of recommendation is specific. So when you're talking to your letter writers, your potential letter writers, let them know what you would like them to specifically talk about. And if someone says no, thank them for their time and move on to the next person that you might request a letter of recommendation from. My fourth tip for requesting letters of recommendation is to provide your letter writers with all the information that they need to write you an excellent letter. I write a lot of letters of recommendation. The people that you ask to write yours probably also write a lot of letters of recommendation. So you giving me information about who you are, about how you were in my classes, about what you did in my classes, about how we collaborated, is going to help me be personal in my supporting you with an excellent letter. Some of the information that's going to help might include sharing your CV with your potential letter writers. If you're applying to graduate school, sharing your personal statement that lets them know why you're applying to graduate school and what you hope to do when you get there. If you're applying in the academic job market, it might include your cover letter, your research statement, your teaching statement, and your diversity statement. These are things going to let us know who you see yourself as an applicant and what you want to do. This is going to make our letter for you more personal and more informative. If you're in a class with me, I appreciate when students share samples of the work they did in that class. That really helps me remember having learned with them that semester. It's also important to provide your letter writers with information about the programs you're applying to. So what kind of degree is it? Is it a master's degree or a PhD? What field is it in? What kind of things will you be doing? Is it practice-oriented or is it research-oriented? If you're applying to academic jobs, letting me know whether it's an undergraduate institution, whether it's a large state institution, whether it's a master's program, whether it's a PhD program, whether you'll be mentoring graduate students in that, whether you'll be expected to publish. Those kind of things are going to help me tailor your letter to help you be more successful in your applications. More information you should provide is it's very unlikely you're applying to only one department or to one job. So providing a list of the departments that you're applying to is going to be very helpful. And letting me know how to submit your letter. Is it an online link? Is it something that I would mail? Do I do this proactively or do I wait for them to contact me? These kind of things are going to make it really easy for me to organize the experience, especially with the due dates that go along with these applications. My fifth tip for requesting letters of recommendation is to follow up with your letter writers appropriately and to thank them. In terms of the follow-up, about a week or two before your deadlines, I would check in with those letter writers and just say, hey, that application to wherever is due. Just wanted to let you know it was coming up and make myself available if you had any questions. This is going to make it real easy for me to stay on track because, as I've said, I'm writing a lot of letters for a lot of people. This makes sure that your letter is going to get in when it's supposed to. And finally, thank your letter writers and be genuine about it. Writing letters takes a while. For me to write a good letter of recommendation is probably about an hour and a half to 2 hours of my time. And that is time well spent. One of the things about writing letters is it's really, really fulfilling. It's an opportunity for me to kind of recollect and reconnect with students who have done amazing things with me in my classes and my research lab. So it's something I really take a lot of joy in. It's really what it's all about, is we're supporting our students for that next level of success. But it is some work. And letting your letter writers know that you really appreciate what they're doing to support you in your applications is something that I highly recommend. As a student, I was really fortunate to have wonderful people support me for graduate school. As a graduate student, I was really fortunate to have people support me for my academic positions. And I remember that when I'm writing the letters that I write for students now. Over the course of my career, I've written hundreds, if not thousands, of letter recommendations for students. And it is one of the things that I think we really do to kind of succeed in teaching and learning is to support our students in their career endeavors and future success. I think it's really humbling when we look at the things that our students do and to realize that we, in some small way, get to support these wonderful individuals in the next stage of their lives. So letters of recommendation is not just a box we check in the application process. It is something that is a very human experience and something very gratifying and wonderful for all of us involved. So if you are a potential letter writer who is watching this video, I highly recommend that when those students reach out to you and ask for those letters, that you say yes. In my opinion, the only time that someone should decline the opportunity to write a letter of recommendation is when they are unable or unwilling to provide an excellent letter to support that student. And for those of you who run into individuals who cannot provide that excellent letter for you, as I mentioned earlier, thank them, and move on to the next person, because a letter that is not excellent may actually work against you. So to sum up, when you're looking for letter writers, look for people who can say wonderful things about you and mean it. So there you have 5 tips for requesting letters of recommendation. I hope those tips are helpful for you and wish you all the success in the world in those applications for graduate school, professional school, and academic jobs. In the comments below, I would love to hear about your thoughts and experiences, both asking for letters of recommendation and maybe even writing those letters of recommendation. Thank you for watching this week's episode of Engage the Sage. Please like, subscribe, sign up for notifications, and share us on social media. We'll see you next time on Engage the Sage.